The Be Quiet Dark Rock 4 has been on the market for quite some time now, however it is still regarded as a good alternative to other good quality air CPU coolers, mainly thanks to its design and low noise operation, a feature which became the trademark of Be Quiet as a brand. The Dark Rock 4 is available for around $60 or euros, give or take, as I have found this cooler with multiple prices so your mileage may vary. The Dark Rock 4 is using a single 135mm fan and sports a rather stylish all-black design with a ceramic coating applied. The heatsink of the Dark Rock 4 is using a single tower design and has approximately 45 aluminium-made cooling fins, which are stacked over 6 copper-made heat pipes. The heatsink itself also has a rather nice top plate, which is made out of aluminum and features a linear brushed texture. Also, for the extra design points, in the center of this plate, we have a highly reflective Be Quiet logo, which enhances the look of the cooler in a subtle yet effective way. The previously mentioned 6 heat pipes are made out of copper and each has an outer diameter of 6mm, as per usual with these high-end air CPU coolers. Thankfully, the endings of these heat pipes are covered by metallic caps at the top of the cooler and thus offering a sleek look for the entire cooling assembly. The base plate of the Dark Rock 4 is made from the same nickel-plated copper as the heat pipes, and it has its surface polished into a radial sunburst pattern. This not only results in a smooth finish for the base plate, but also improves the spread evenness of the thermal compound once you install the cooler over the CPU. The 6 heat pipes make direct contact with the base plate of the cooler and are also covered by a smaller heatsink found above the heat pipes and base plate. This heatsink has an integral role in the mounting system used by the cooler. The cooler uses a single 135mm fan. Yes, quite a unique dimension for a fan, but the Dark Rock 4 uses it. The fan in question is a Be Quiet Silent Wings PWM model and uses a fluid dynamic bearing system with a maximum speed of 1400 RPM and a minimum speed of 500 RPM. You might wonder why this fan does not have any rubber pads on its corners or on the frame to dampen any vibrations. Quite a good question, which has a simple answer. It doesn't have such padding because the heatsink itself has pre-installed 2 rubber strips that run along the entire length of the heatsink and thus provide a solid base for the fan to sit on and also dampen any vibrations created by the rotational movement of the impellers. Still talking about the fan, the cable used is plenty long to reach most fan headers on your motherboard. It is also covered by high quality sleeving and it uses a standard 4-pin connector for the power. The fan is also fully PWM compatible and thus can be controlled by the motherboard. The accessories are plentiful as you can expect from a cooler of this caliber. You get a Phillips long screwdriver which also has a magnetic tip. Then you have the user manual which is printed in 6 different languages. Next we have 2 sets of metallic clips for the fan. Please keep in mind that these are different lengths, so one set is meant to be used on the front fan, while the other set is supposed to go at the back of the cooler. There is also a small tube of thermal compound, and that's pretty much what you are going to get, apart from the components of the mounting systems for both the Intel and AMD platforms. Now we can see just how good the Dark Rock 4 truly looks like once installed, and just like the other high quality brands like Noctua, Be Quiet shows that good looking products can be made without the usage of RGB LEDs. Anyway, what about clearance? Well, the Dark Rock 4 will cover the first RAM slot of the motherboard, but thankfully will not interfere with the second one. Moving lower, we can see that there is ample room for the graphics card and the first PCIe expansion slot of the motherboard. This is especially important as many modern motherboards have M.2 sockets for SSDs placed above the first PCIe expansion slot, so a CPU cooler that has good clearance in this area will help tremendously when installing an M.2 SSD. As always, before we get into the testing of the cooler and the temperatures, or in other words the graphs and numbers, here is the actual sound of the cooler with its fan spinning from 0 RPM to its maximum speed of 1400 RPM. I am doing this to showcase not only the noise level generated by the CPU cooler, but also the sound signature, as this is also important. Trust me, you'd rather want to have a louder wind noise than some lower bearing noise. The Be Quiet Dark Rock 4 reached a maximum sound level of 38 decibels measured at 10 cm away from the system and CPU cooler. As I've previously said, The important thing is not only that it has a low decibel value at maximum RPM, but that the used fan has no unwanted noises apart from the air being pushed through the heatsink. The actual testing of all CPU coolers is done in a straightforward way. I am using an Intel i9 9900K CPU overclocked manually to 5 GHz. There are also 2 tests for simulating 2 types of CPU loads and thus 2 ways in which a CPU cooler will behave and showcase its true performance. The first test involves the usage of Intel BurnTest V2, a software which provides a CPU load that you may encounter in many AAA modern games. And in this test, the Dark Rock 4 reached a maximum temperature of 69 degrees Celsius with an ambient temperature of 26 degrees Celsius. The second test is using the FPU and cake stability test found within the AIDA64 Extreme software. This type of load placed on the CPU will not be encountered in any game or application, but it is pushing the limits of the cooling capacity of each tested CPU cooler. And in this test, the Dark Rock 4 reached a maximum temperature of 90 degrees Celsius with the same ambient temperature of 26 degrees Celsius. The Be Quiet Dark Rock 4 is a solid CPU cooler that is a worthy alternative to other more mainstream air CPU coolers. The main advantage of the Dark Rock 4 is not only the way it looks, but the low noise operation and the actual cooling performance, given the size of the heatsink and the usage of just a single fan. However, while the performance is good, this is not a CPU that you would want to have for high-end overclocking on a CPU such as the Intel i9 9900K, because as you saw just a minute ago, overclocking past 5 GHz or beyond that results in temperatures over or equal to 90 degrees Celsius. The Dark Rock 4 is ideal for a powerful gaming system that also needs to be silent and look good. The only issue that you will have is the price of this cooler, but it can be justified as the mounting system and the overall build quality of this cooler are very good and on par with most CPU coolers found in the high-end segment of the market. If you like this review, then perhaps you can consider subscribing for more, and also if you want to support this channel directly, in the description below you will find both the Patreon and subscriber star pages.